On tonight's CTV News, the city's prostitutes are worried about their safety. Old log burners come under scrutiny in ECAN's new clean air policy, and Selwyn ratepayers are expected to chip in to repair the region's roads. This is CTV News. I'm Grant Mangan. The main suspect for the homicide of a Christchurch woman and an attack on 2 tourists on the west coast was on parole at the time. 24-year-old Amy Farrell was found dead in the boot of her white Toyota Corolla on Sunday, parked at a Woolston supermarket.
Police have confirmed Miss Farrell lived with a 38-year-old man who was due to be interviewed as part of the investigation into her death. It's not understood yet what their relationship was. The Department of Corrections National Commissioner Jeremy Lightfoot says initial inquiries show the man, who was on parole, had been meeting conditions until the last report on him was given to the department in March. Commissioner Lightfoot says consequently a recall application will be lodged with the parole board. Due to his injuries, including dog bites, he was kept at Greybase Hospital since he was arrested at 3 a.m. on Monday morning in South Westland, but is now in Christchurch Hospital. He will be guarded by police, and a bedside court hearing is a possibility if he's required to stay in care. Police are requesting information from the public on the man's last sighting in Christchurch on Saturday morning and when the police saw him on the west coast at 8 p.m. Sunday night. Inquiries on the west coast are focusing on sightings of the man and his dark blue-coloured Nissan Terrano, registration WR4174. WR4174.
A sexual assault on a Christchurch prostitute last month has the rest of the city's sex workers worried for their safety. This comes as police still haven't made any arrests over the attacks.
It's Friday night on Manchester Street, and it's quiet. Too quiet for a Friday. By 10 o'clock, only half a dozen girls were out. Where were the others? Some, as it turns out, are too scared to work at night after recent sexual assaults. 49-year-old Tarns would rather work during the day. But 3 weeks into the investigation, there have been no arrests.
Those investigations are ongoing. I've spoken to the officer in charge. They appear to be connected and we're following some strong leads. Security camera images show a man police are seeking in relation to the assaults. The images show a man walking on Manchester Street near the intersection with Belly Avenue at around 3 a.m. on Friday the 7th of March. He was spotted on camera shortly before the first of the 2 attacks. The second occurred about 2 hours later. The man police are seeking is described as a Māori or Polynesian of solid build, with long, straggly hair, possibly tied in a ponytail. He was pictured wearing a white or light-coloured jacket. Christchurch police want to speak to the male in relation to at least one of the attacks. Those 2 assaults are more serious than we've had recently, other than the homicides, obviously. Those homicides the detective inspector mentions both occurred before the earthquakes. This is the first instance a serious crime on Manchester Street has been reported to police since those murders. But any serious assaults certainly need to get reported to us either by the victim or witnesses or the hospital or something like that. The New Zealand Prostitutes Collective was shocked by the assaults, but the collective's co-founder is proud of the sex workers involved.
We're glad that it gets reported to the police because once upon a time people might have just taken it as part of the job, or they would have felt, certainly before the laws changed, that they weren't really able to because they were doing something kind of illegal and the police wouldn't really treat them seriously. Police have increased patrols in the area to assist with inquiries and provide reassurance to street workers, but until the man or men responsible are caught, many girls won't be returning to the street anytime soon. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
Next month marks 11 years since the New Zealand Prostitutes Collective won a war against those opposing the sex industry. Prostitution was decriminalised and women and men were finally allowed to sell sex. Marcus Gibbs spoke to the co-founder of the New Zealand Prostitutes Collective about the upcoming anniversary.
These days you don't need to drive far to see sex for sale on the streets. 11 years ago it was a different story. Girls hid in the shadows. Selling sex was a crime. But the tide was turning. The New Zealand Prostitutes Collective helped to start a campaign to overturn the laws.
We lived it, we breathed it. It was the only thing, and I went to Parliament for every stage of that bill passing through, and on the night when it got voted in by 1 vote, but it still got voted in, that was the most euphoric moment of my life. Never forget being in that gallery and all those that had supported it just whooped and woo the speaker was saying, "Silence, silence!"
Anna remembers how almost immediately after the bill passed, sex workers were able to come out of the shadows. No longer did they need to hide. Anna witnessed one transgender woman stand up for her rights straight after the bill passed.
A police carriage just sort of pulled up, and she went, I'm working here. And he went, "Oh, sorry," and he drove off. It was lovely. So overnight, the police sort of became almost like their protectors.
11 years ago, sex workers in brothels had no rights. Now they're all treated like normal employees.
Management has had to pull its socks up a lot, and people won't tolerate bad conditions. I mean, somebody got awarded $25,000 in Wellington about a month ago for a harassment charge from her operator. I mean, that would have been unheard of.
But after 11 years, has the situation changed for the better for these girls working on Manchester Street? Recent violent and sexual attacks made headlines last month. Unfortunately, Anna says that's nothing new.
There's always been violence. We used to keep an ugly mugs book, which, way back from 93, I remember our first recordings. And sometimes there was more violence than there has been in the last 5 years or 11 years.
25 years working for the MPC has made Anna a legend on and off the streets as she fights for sex workers' rights.
Yeah, I'm the old gal. I'll go watch material. Yes, I really should retire, but until somebody comes along that I feel safe handing over the mantle, I don't know that I can, because there's not a knowledge inside, and I've known a lot of those people for a very, very long time. You build up relationships with people. I know a lot of the older workers.
Anna's dream is for former sex workers to be proud of what they've done. Sex workers, she says, make fantastic social workers. Over the years, thousands of girls and men have been part of the Christchurch sex industry. This bench outside the St Luke's Church site is dedicated to all the people who have lived, worked and died on Manchester Street. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
And next Tuesday, Marcus Gibbs will present a new current affairs series called Street Stories, which replaces Point of View. In the first episode, he'll explore street prostitution in Christchurch, exposing a range of issues. It is a sad and shocking program, and probably ought to be compulsory viewing. Well, winter's just around the corner, and old wood burners are the current focus of keeping Christchurch pollution down.
It's time to clean Canterbury's air, which means clamping down on log burners.
We think now, I mean, it's 3 years, 4 years down the track, it's time for us to actually tighten up on the enforcement side of things.
Something Environment Canterbury hasn't been enforcing since local homes were devastated by the February earthquake.
We realised that there were thousands of people out there who were in a devastated position, and the last thing they needed was to be hammered over whether or not their fires were not quite as clean as they could be. So we took a pretty light-handed approach.
Homes in Canterbury haven't been able to install a log burner since regulation changes came into play in 2002. Central government and ratepayer money was spent to install clean heating into homes instead, with the hopes of reducing the number of nights that harmful quantities of dangerous particles called PM10 were in the air. By 2020, ECAN hopes those nights would be down from the current 15 to just 1.
Current projections aren't that flash. We're not actually going to make it.
ECAN is hoping to crack down and change the culture of those still using wood burners to use them in an efficient and clean way.
Existing wood burners are capable of producing a reasonably good result, but only if they're operated properly and only if dry wood is burnt.
They're currently in the process of reviewing the Air Plan program, which was introduced in 2002, looking at what has worked and what needs improving.
There'll be a lot of consultation. People will be able to make submissions on that as it goes through that process. There are, as you probably know, some quite divergent views on whether wood burning is good or bad.
Letters have been sent to 8,000 people who still have a log burner in their home, and inspectors will be using infrared screening throughout the winter months to monitor those homes. Emma Cropper, CTV News.
Despite a population rise, the crime rate in New Zealand has dropped 4% in the last calendar year. Statistics New Zealand released the figures today, which show crime is also down in Canterbury.
In real terms, 2013 saw 15,602 fewer crimes than the year before it. The population has also risen by 0.9%, which means per capita, Offending dropped by 5% in 2013. Deputy Police Commissioner Mike Bush says the 2013 result is the lowest crime figure in 29 years. Commissioner Bush says they're deploying staff more efficiently and proactively to ensure police are in the right place at the right time to prevent crime from occurring. In 2013, police conducted more than 104,000 foot patrols nationwide. Frontline officers now spend an extra half hour per shift in the communities preventing crime. The police say the sharp reduction in public assaults is a great example of how the Prevention First strategy is making communities safer. In Canterbury, recorded crime fell by 5.6%, reversing the post-quake rise. The police are happy with the progress in Canterbury. They say this shows they're maintaining the positive gains made in the post-quake environment through proactive policing and a focus on crime prevention.
Coming up, Lincoln University wants to recruit industry professionals as a cost-cutting measure.
I'm Chris Lynch. Join me for CTV's new current affairs show Lynched every Monday at 8:30 right here on CTV, where I talk to the decision makers and those responsible for running our city.
Avoid the monkeys when it comes to relocating. Trust A1 Movers, a family business since 1993 that guarantees a professional job every time. We carefully handle and wrap your valued items, ensuring they have a safe journey. Secure storage and insurance options are also available.
A1 Movers, the careful, caring moving company. Oi!
At Lamb & Haywood, we're committed to providing you with the very best environment at your time of greatest need. You can choose from the best facilities in Canterbury, our recently refurbished West Park Chapel, the Kerrs Road Chapel in Eastern Christchurch, or perhaps Waimana Chapel in Rangiora. However you remember, commemorate or celebrate the life of your loved one, whether it's an intimate group or a grand send-off, the choice is yours. Lamb & Haywood, a tradition of caring.
Hey, what's up with you? Oh, I've got birthdays coming up, I've got bills coming out of my ears, I just don't have the money. Well, why don't you just go to the pawn shop?
Yes, the pawn shop has a massive selection of rings, watches, car audio, sports gear, heaps of DVDs, digital cameras, computers and musical instruments. They have just about everything.
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Everything's as good as gold at the pawn shop. 77 Ferry Road and 396 Blenheim Road.
Al Jazeera News. International news right off the satellite, bringing you up-to-the-minute coverage of world events. Al Jazeera News. Weekday mornings at 6 o'clock. Right here on CTV.
A South Canterbury business has been forced to shut their doors after serving contaminated milk to the public.
A raw milk provider in Timaru is causing health issues for locals. Village Milk has shut their doors after 7 cases of people contracting Campylobacter have come to light. It's being linked to the milk purchased from their business. The owners are working to find the cause of the outbreak and believe it came from one of the new cows or from a contaminated water supply. Village Milk is natural and unaltered milk collected from a herd of cows and dispensed on the farm. They have franchises in Oxford, Greymouth, Hamilton, and their Timaru franchise had only started operating 3 weeks ago. The contamination of the milk is being pinned down to human error, with procedures of testing the milk before it was put in the dispenser neglected. The Ministry of Primary Industries has also launched an investigation into the issue.
In light of fewer international enrolments and less government funding, Lincoln University is replacing some lecturers with industry professionals. This comes as the university aims to save $5 million.
Lincoln University plans to replace law and engineering lecturers with industry professionals, who would come in to teach as contractors on a semester-by-semester basis. Last week, Lincoln University announced it would be revamping its qualifications and cutting jobs for roughly 10% of their academic staff. Due to falling international enrolments and government funding cuts, the university needs to save $5 million. Nanette Cormack, the Deputy Secretary of the Tertiary Education Union, is concerned that industry professionals lack experience in forming lesson plans and teaching students. Lincoln University Vice-Chancellor Dr Andrew West disagrees, saying the plan is credible. Both agree the government should provide Lincoln University with more financial support and funding, particularly in the area of agriculture and environmental science.
Selwyn's roads aren't coping with the increased population driving up and down them, which means locals will be paying extra to fix them.
Selwyn ratepayers are funding for the growth of their district out of their back pocket. This means rates in the Selwyn district are expected to rise 7.8%. Without the transport fee, the increase would have been just under 3% less at 4.9%. A portion of the work is subsidised by the New Zealand Transport Agency, but the contribution was below what the council believed it needed. An extra $1 million is hoped to be raised through the rates increase. Selwyn is the fastest growing district in New Zealand, with a fast growing population and economic activity, which are having an impact on the district's roads. A survey of the district last year showed 83% of the respondents supported increased rates to improve the roads. The increase is part of the draft annual plan, which is up for public submission until the 8th of April.
Still to come, Made in Canterbury is our weekly look at the region's manufacturing industry.
Every Monday night I'll take you out and about around the region's A&P shows from Cheviot to Temuka. You'll meet the exhibitors, have a look at the sheep and cattle and horses, and also have a look at what people have been producing. Rob's Country Showtime, 8:30 on a Monday night, CTV.
Hi, I'm Steve and welcome to Carpet Kingdom. At Carpet Kingdom we stock a massive range of carpets and we're also the largest vinyl stockist in the South Island. And not only do we have an excellent range in store, but you can purchase our stock online. We offer free measuring quotes, we have our own installation team, we ship nationwide, so come on down and see us at Carpet Kingdom, 312 Wilsons Road in Waltham, just off Brougham Street, or visit us online at carpetkingdom.co.nz.
Christchurch has its very own enchanted utopia, the Hitching Post. Pop in and see for yourself. A magical assortment of handmade creations, custom-made candles and artwork. Choose from our huge range of water features, garden art and imported giftware. Specialists in handcrafted metal artwork made in store. Nestled on 722 Marshlands Road, the Hitching Post, defining art our way.
3799799. Remember the nights, your Blue Star.
Our new companion package is a personalised service for those that need extra help and support. A cost-effective solution for someone who needs more than just a taxi driver. Our drivers are handpicked from our experienced team and specialise in providing the right support and companionship. Home safe every time with Blue Star Taxis.
Ready to go, mate? Flight leaves at 4:30.
Relax, mate. We'll park at Airpark Canterbury.
Airpark Canterbury, privately owned and operated with a free 24/7 shuttle service. Call 0800 Airpark or book online at airparkcanterbury.co.nz.
Join us tonight at 6 for DW World News. Informative, lively, international news, breaking stories and global developments. DW News, weekdays at 6 p.m, right here on CTV.
Made in Canterbury is our new weekly in-depth look at the region's manufacturing industry. This week, Patrick Phelps finds where there's muck, there's also brass.
G'day, I'm Patrick Phelps and welcome to Made in Canterbury. We're down here at AW Fraser to see how we can turn a bit of scrap metal into a high-value export product. This is what goes in, and this is what comes out. But we'll soon see how that happens. It's a team of 180 people, and Gordon Sutherland's the CEO.
AW Fraser process about a third of New Zealand scrap copper. So when somebody decides to renovate their house and they rip out all their old copper piping and their plumbing fittings, they get sold to a scrap metal dealer and then we buy it from the scrap metal dealer.
From there, it's processed into blocks of roughly 25 kilos and then sent to the melting yard. Gordon Sutherland says first and foremost, they're recyclers, and they have been for 75 years. This zinc comes from French roofing material. It goes through the foundry to be smelted by having electric current run through it. Some metal reaches temperatures of 1400 degrees, and when pouring this brew, stand back. Afterwards, it can go one of two ways.
So for some of your product, this is the finish line. What's happening here? Yeah, so the bar comes out of the foundry and then it goes one of two ways. It either goes out through here, is sold as finished bar, and that'll be sold to distributors around the world. So may go to Malaysia, may go to Thailand, may go to Hong Kong, America, Europe, and be used, as we'll see later, in a process, further processed. Or we cut it up into what we call slugs, and then we'll further process it, which we'll see later on.
In terms of what A.W. Fraser make here, we're not at the finish line just yet. As you saw earlier, there's a lot of heat. There's not fire here, but they do have to deal with a little smoke.
So these here are what are called our air handling systems, or our bag houses, and they filter all of the fumes that come out of our factory. Now they use about a quarter of our electricity that we consume, so we're spending in excess of $250,000 a year running just these parts. Integral part of our plant, an integral part of being in New Zealand and operating in New Zealand. These sort of things don't happen in China, they don't happen in Vietnam where our competitors are, so they don't have that cost.
The power bill alone is $250,000 a year. A cost Mr. Sutherland says his competitors overseas don't have. The foundry also has something our nearby neighbours don't have, the last extrusion press in Australasia. Malleable metal goes in and tubes come out. And in here, the metal becomes specialist parts for export. The combined cost of these computerised machines is in the millions, and this is what they make.
These were brass taps in Grandad's shed. Yep, so this comes from the scrap metal that we saw at the beginning of the tour, and then we end up down here with a finished component which will go into a gear actuator sold into North America. So from, as you say, Granny's old shed into this in the end.
It's a lot of work, and it takes a big team.
We employ about 180, so we've ranged between 160 and 200, depending on levels of business.
It requires expertise. If you don't want monkeys, you don't pay peanuts.
And we look at things like tourism and so on, one of the glamour industries of New Zealand, and a huge portion of that is minimum rate pay. We don't do that. We actually need qualified people that are going to be reliable and here for a long period of time, and we have to pay for that.
They may produce at home, but they sell abroad. 90% of their markets are overseas.
Major market is North America, Europe, sell a lot into the Middle East. We even export machine components into China.
The big obstacle to an export business like this one is a high Kiwi dollar. Gordon Sutherland says it's not going to stay that way, but for now, it makes it difficult.
We all know it will come down at some stage, and this level that we're at is just artificially high and is making New Zealand completely uncompetitive.
He says they're in New Zealand because they started here and they fostered the skills here. While it's challenging, it's worthwhile. A.W. Fraser's been operating for 75 years, and Gordon Sutherland's been in charge for 8 years as of today. He says it's beneficial for them to stay here, and it means one man's trash can be another man's treasure.
We could just export that scrap metal, or we could add value in New Zealand, bring all of that money from offshore for adding that value in New Zealand, and have it for people living in New Zealand. So it's so much better. Export scrap or export a finished component where we've put all of that effort and added all of that value and brought that profit and all of the money back into New Zealand.
Patrick Phelps, CTV News.
If you're driving around the central city, CTV's traffic update will assist you navigating the repairs taking place.
Hello travellers, to help you plan your journey around the central city, here's a look at what to expect this week. Work continues on Beeley Avenue between Papanui Road and Madras Street, where the traffic is down to 2 lanes in places. Durham Street North is down to 1 lane between Beeley Ave and Armagh Street. Remember, major works are in progress at the Durham, Kilmore and Victoria Street intersection. As always, please allow extra time during peak hours as there will be delays. Stay tuned this week on CTV News, first at 5 for more updates on what's happening with the Central City roads. And in the meantime, visit the Transport for Christchurch website.
And remember that updates are conveniently broadcast at 7, 8 and 9 a.m. and then again at 12 midday here on CTV. And finally tonight, to the soothing tones of Coldplay, your regional weather.
Good evening, Canterbury. Let's take a look at your weather. Starting down south in Timaru, 17, and Temuka and Geraldine, 18. In Ashburton and Methven, a comfortable 17, and a nice day at the Rakaia River, 19. In Leeston, Darfield and Ralston, a mild 17 degrees today. And towards the Garden City, Christchurch and Lincoln, 17 degrees. And over in Akaroa, not much change, 17 today. Heading into the north of Canterbury, Kaiapoi and Rangiora, 17. Can't forget about Amberley though, 17 as well. Taking the highs of the region, Culverden and Hanma Springs hit 21, as well as Cheviot, and in Kaikoura, 17. And let's take a look at tomorrow's weather. In Timaru, it's no April Fool's joke. You can expect low cloud at first clearing and long sunny periods developing with northeasterly breezes. Tonight's low 11, tomorrow's high 9. In Ashburton, some mist or low cloud at first, but becoming fine and sunny during the day, with the usual northeasterlies developing. Tonight's low 11, tomorrow's high 19 degrees. In Christchurch, a cloudy start for your Wednesday, but a sunny afternoon in store as northeasterly breezes blow the clouds away. Tonight's low 11, tomorrow's high 18. In Kaikoura, low cloud at first clearing and long sunny periods developing with northeasterly breezes. Tonight's low 11, tomorrow's high 19. And in other areas, Geraldine and Temuka expect some cloud with a high of 19 and a low of 10. Methven, a high of 19, same for Rakaia. And Darfield expect to hit 18 and Leeston 18 with some cloud. Ralston and Lincoln expect the same, 18. Over in Akaroa, not much change with a forecast of 18. Heading north, Kaiapoi and Rangiora 19 with cloud expected, same for Amberley 19 degrees. And Culverden, Hanma Springs and Cheviot looking lovely with a high of 21. Looking ahead for Canterbury, mostly fine and sunny with milder temperatures and moderate northeasterly winds on Thursday and Friday. But rain developing on Friday night. Cloudy on Saturday with light rain and drizzle till evening. Light southwesterly winds will be cool. Cloud breaking and sunny periods developing during the afternoon on Sunday with moderate northeasterlies. High cloud increasing on Monday with northeasterlies dying out and rain developing during the evening. And that's all for your regional weather. Enjoy the remainder of your April Fool's Day.
I'd completely forgotten it was April Fool's Day. Ha, silly me. That's CTV News for Tuesday. I'm Grant Mangan. Good night.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.